In this chapter, we can look in more detail at the versatility of Socratic method. And we'll see examples of it being used in assessment, in formulation, in challenging problem cognitions, and in problem solving and testing predictions. Now, when we're using Socratic method in assessment, we're carrying out an exercise that's predominantly a data collecting exercise. We're asking lots of analytical questions, but that doesn't mean that you can't also encourage new insights. And so you should try to weave this into your therapeutic practice. It goes without saying that at this stage, in all stages, we need to have at the forefront of our minds compassion, curiosity, and caution. And now we'll look at assessment in action, and again we'll meet Jo at her first session with her therapist, when the therapist is trying to just get a feel for what Jo's experience is like for Jo. So Jo, as this is the first time we've met, I wonder if you could tell me in your own words what the problem is that you want help with. I've seen the referral letter, but it'd be really helpful just to hear it from you, what you want to have help with.
My problem's around binge eating. I basically eat until I'm not hungry anymore, and then I vomit.
Yeah. Okay, and how often is this happening?
It's about every 2 to 3 days, sometimes more.
Right. And do you just have one episode of binging and vomiting, or would you have more than one episode at a time?
It's generally just one episode.
Right. You say it's happening every 2 or 3 days. Does that mean that it's happened in the last week? I just wonder then if you can cast your mind back to a recent incident, and perhaps we could unpack that a bit, and then that would give me perhaps more understanding of just what the problem is like for you. Would that be okay?
Okay.
Can you think of a recent time?
Yeah, it was day before yesterday.
Right, so can you set the scene for me a little bit? Where were you?
I'd left work and I'd got the bus home. And as soon as I walked in the flat, I was aware I was hungry. And I can't resist pasta. So I cooked myself some pasta, which I ate, and then afterwards I ate lots of biscuits and chocolate and a few other things as well.
Right. So it wasn't just the pasta, then you went on to eat more things. I'm just wondering, what were you feeling at that time? You'd eaten the pasta, you went on to eat more things. What were you feeling at that time?
I'd had a bad day at work, so I was feeling fed up from that. But while I was eating the pasta, I was feeling okay. And then I went to have some biscuits and some chocolate, which was fine to start with. I felt good, and then, when I stopped and realised, again I felt out of control and really bad.
All right. So you came home not just hungry, but you were fed up as well. And you said you can't resist pasta, so you made yourself some pasta. So far, so good. And you said that you were feeling okay while you were eating the pasta, and then you had a biscuit, some chocolate, and initially that was okay, but then you began to feel bad about eating the chocolate. Just what was going through your mind when you started to feel bad?
I've done it again. I've broken my diet that I was on, and I was out of control.
And just what are the feelings that leaves you with?
I felt angry with myself for doing it, and also felt embarrassed that I'm out of control.
So what happens next? You have those bad feelings, and what happens next?
then I have the urge to vomit, which I did.
Okay, and when that had happened, then how were you feeling then?
When I vomit, I feel better to start with, and then when I have to stop, I feel bad again. And on that occasion, I just felt so exhausted that I just went to bed.
Yeah. Tell me if you disagree with this, but it seems to me there's a bit of a pattern going on here. You came home feeling hungry and fed up, so you weren't feeling great when you came home, and you were hungry. Then you had some pasta, you started to feel better, and then you began to eat biscuits and chocolate. And although initially eating had helped you feel better, then it made you feel worse, and you started to have thoughts like, I've done it again, I've broken my diet, I'm not in control. And you began to get angry, you felt embarrassed about what you'd done. And that gave you the urge to vomit. And initially, when you started to vomit, you felt better. But when you'd finished vomiting, then the bad feelings kicked in again. And on that day, you were so exhausted, you went to bed. And presumably that then broke this pattern of eating and vomiting. Is that how it is for you?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it does seem that in the short term, eating and vomiting actually gives you some relief. In the longer term, it makes you feel bad. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I'd say, I'd agree with you.
So what did we see in that assessment? Well, one thing that will have come through is the importance of detail. We want to know precisely what Jo's feeling, what she's thinking, how she reacts, and that can often be made an easier task for Jo if we use recent events for reference. And so typically ask your client for a recent time when they felt anxious, depressed, in this case had a binge, and to bring that to mind and recount that. That way you're going to get much more vivid recall of events. Keep checking that you understand. If in doubt, check. It's better to have too many little summaries and reflective statements to keep you on track than too few. And you can build up the formulation as you go. You can ask questions such as, what went through your mind? And how did you feel? And when you felt like that, what did you do? And these are all stages in building up a formulation of what was happening for that person at that time. Assessment and formulation don't have to be kept separate. The thing that I'd most want to stress about assessment is the importance of curiosity. And I've got an example here of a client that I met some time ago where I almost wasn't curious enough, and I think that would have been a bad thing. This client I hadn't met before, and he arrived at the session clutching his chest and gulping and saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. I had a hypothesis, this is a panic attack. It looked like a panic attack. And I asked a series of questions. How does that feel in your body? What's going through your mind? And his responses to those questions supported my hypothesis that this is a panic attack. And ultimately he replied, I can't breathe, I'm going to die. Again, a cognition that would support panic attack. The only thing was that in the referral letter there had been no reference to anxiety problems at all. And so I was curious, and rather than going into panic management at this stage, I asked some more questions. I asked, tell me a bit more about what you can see in your mind's eye. And he replied, nothing, it's dark. Now this was beginning to question my hypothesis. So I continued. and I asked, can you tell me more about what's happening for you? What's happening in your body? What's happening around you? And his response was, he's crushing me. And it turned out that this man wasn't having a panic attack. He was having a flashback with very physiological elements to it. He was reliving being molested as a child. The good thing, the very fortunate thing about my unpacking this was that we could then move into flashback management and give the client relief from the flashback. Had I not asked the extra questions and continued with my hypothesis, this is a panic attack, I would have gone into panic management, which might have given him some respite, but wouldn't have addressed the real problem. Now let's look at how Socratic method is useful in challenging problem cognitions. Now, when we're challenging cognitions, there's more emphasis on generating new possibilities. You know, it's a different phase from assessment. And it's important during this phase, in particular, to be compassionate and not adversarial. We're not trying to catch the client out. We're not trying to invalidate their thinking. And we're certainly striving to avoid the client feeling that they are being cornered by our clever questions. It's important that the client feels that we are supporting them and facilitating them and are curious about what's happening for them, such that any answer the client gives is an interesting and useful answer. And the sorts of questions we can ask are, what things have happened to you that don't fit in with your current view? I wonder if someone else is in your situation, how might he or she view the situation? I'm curious, are these standards that you'd expect of someone else? Or I wonder if you'd be as certain if it were your friend who'd done X. And each of those questions aims to widen the client's perspective, to help him or her think of their situation from a different angle. None of those questions is aimed to make the client feel that their thinking is wrong. We're going to look at it in action now. And again, you're going to see Jo, the young woman with bulimia, who's engaged in challenging of an unhelpful automatic thought that keeps cropping up. What I noticed looking at this is this first entry. It stands out to me because it seems to be very distressing for you. You've rated the belief in it 99%, and it's really upset you. And the thoughts and feelings that you've put down is, I can't face going to dinner, I'm rubbish, I'm a waste of space. I just wonder, can you tell me a bit more about what was going on then?
Yeah, sure. My colleagues, or my boss, has organised a posh dinner at work. I mean, I guess it's a formal dinner. I just don't want to go.
Because?
I feel that I won't be in control of my eating if I go, because you have to eat what's given to you, and I just feel really anxious about that.
Okay, well that's understandable. So you're anxious about going to the dinner because you feel you have to eat, and you're worried about having to eat, and it's left you then feeling like, I'm rubbish, I'm a waste of space.
Oh, absolutely. That's, I guess, if I don't go, people would go without thinking about it. I know my colleagues are; they're excited about it. Why do I feel like that? I just feel I'm a total waste of space for not wanting to go.
And this is something that, as we said, you believe really strongly, 99%. I'm just wondering, is there anything from your previous experience that actually fits with the idea that, you're rubbish or a waste of space?
Oh, definitely. It's something that my family keep reminding me of from the past. Particularly when I don't want to do things that I really ought to.
So sounds to me as though it's no wonder that it crosses your mind. If it's this message you've been getting from your family. Can we put that down in this column, which is the evidence that supports a powerful negative automatic thought?
Sure.
Do you want to jot that down? Borrow my pad.
Thank you. So in this column here, what I just said.
Yeah, well, it's understandable. My family tell me this, or however you want to phrase it.
Okay. So my family, remind me of this.
Any other reasons why it might be in your mind that you are rubbish or a waste of space?
Or because I can't go to I don't want to go to this formal dinner.
So not wanting to go to the dinner, does that strike you as being evidence that you're rubbish?
Particularly when like I said, my colleagues are just doing it.
So maybe that can go down as well, that if you compare yourself to your colleagues, then you're not able to go.
Okay.
So what we're getting in this column, I hope, is an understanding of why it makes sense that it goes through your mind. So we're not saying that this is a true thought or a false thought. At this point, we're just saying it's no wonder it goes through your mind. Your family have been on at you for as long as you can remember, and if you compare yourself with colleagues, they can do something you can't. Anything else that we put in that column?
Just that from my past, that I have avoided things in, particularly going out for dinner or going out for drinks with people.
Okay. Well,
is that what you mean?
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly what I mean. Put that one down as well, because again, that makes it understandable that it goes through your mind. Okay. So we've got here that it's no wonder I think like this. My family have reminded me that I'm rubbish and a waste of space. If I compare myself to my colleagues, then I can't do something they can, and I've got a history of avoiding going out with friends. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Now, what I'd like us to think about is the other side of that. Any experience that you have that doesn't fit with I'm rubbish or I'm a waste of space?
Not that I can think of.
It's often the harder column. Let's have a little think.
Perhaps that it's my choice to go or not to go. I don't have to go to the dinner. Is that what you mean?
Well, I think that's relevant, isn't it? That this situation is a situation where you've got a free choice. I suppose my concern is that you're making the choice of not going, which is your free choice, but then you're giving yourself a hard time afterwards, aren't you? I'm rubbish, I'm a waste of space. And I was just wondering whether there's anything in your experience that leaves you thinking, no, I'm not rubbish, I'm not a waste of space.
Okay.
Supposing I ask you a different question, might make it easier. Your best friend Sue, you've brought her name up quite a lot. Now, if I were to ask Sue that same question, what in her view tells her that Joe isn't rubbish, Joe isn't a waste of space, would Sue be able to come up with things?
Or she regularly tells me that I'm fun to be with and I make her laugh and, we have a good time.
That's exactly the sort of thing we need in that column. So why don't you write that down? That Sue says you're fun to be with, make her laugh.
Okay.
Anything else Sue would say?
Well, like I said before, it's totally my choice whether I choose to go to the dinner or not. Is that what you mean?
Yep, yep. If you say that. This is a matter of choice and it's your choice, yeah?
Okay.
Anything else that she might say that, tells us that she really thinks you're not rubbish, you're not a waste of space? Any other qualities that you think she would tell me about?
Probably around my work, that there are things at work that I do well, and other people have commented on my success.
Right, okay. Well, that seems to fit with evidence that you're not a waste of space. Do you want to put that down as well?
Okay. Okay.
So what have we got? Let's see. We've got that Sue would say, you're fun to be with, you make her laugh, that going to dinner is a matter of choice and it's your choice, and that she'd also tell me that your work quality is really good. People have commented on this. Okay. Anything else? If you think of Sue now, telling me why, in her experience, you're not rubbish, you're not a waste of space. Anything else you might come up with?
I think that's it for now.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, if anything else occurs to you, you can always jot it down, because it would be good to capture reasons that tell us that you're not rubbish, you're not a waste of space.
Okay.
If I asked Sue another question, I wonder what she'd say. Supposing I said, well, Jo's decided that, given she's anxious, she's not going to go to this party. What do you make of that? What would she say? What would her conclusion be about you not going to the party?
But it's okay. It was a decision that I've made, and it's the right decision for me.
Oh, that's interesting. So she'd say, if you don't want to go, it's your decision, the right thing for you, it's okay. And now we've talked this through, and we've said that initial thought about, I'm rubbish and a waste of space was really distressing. We can understand where it comes from. You've had these messages and you've had experience of not doing things. However, if we asked your friend's opinion, she'd give us quite a different picture. She'd tell us that you personally have got really nice qualities. You're fun to be with, you make her laugh. She'd tell you that work-wise, you've got very good qualities, and the quality of your work is high. And she'd also point out that it's your choice whether you go to this dinner or not. And if you decide it's best for you not to go, that would be okay with her. As we go through that, what would your conclusion be now about that situation? I can't face going to dinner. What would you conclude now?
That it's my decision, whether I go or not.
And even if you don't go?
That's okay.
Does it make you rubbish or a waste of space if you don't go?
No, it doesn't matter.
So that's an important conclusion to write down.
Okay.
So if you want to jot that down. So your new conclusion is it's my choice to go or not, and it's okay. It doesn't matter. How strongly do you believe that now as we're looking at it?
About 50%.
Okay. And if you look back at this belief, I can't face going to dinner means I'm rubbish and a waste of space, which you believe 99%. How strongly do you believe that now?
About 55%.
Right. So that's good. You've managed to bring down the intensity of this automatic thought that you'd had. and you've managed to build up a competing thought, which is, it's okay. How do you feel now in comparison to when we first talked about this thought and what it meant?
I feel better, but still not brilliant.
Yeah, not brilliant, but you feel better.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good that you've managed to make that shift. Any conclusion that you draw from making that shift?
I guess that it's really helpful to break it down and look at it like this.
Yeah. I mean, is it something that you think it might be helpful for you to do more of, perhaps between the sessions?
Oh, definitely.
So what can you take from that piece of role play? Well, first, I hope it's clear that Socratic method is an educational method. We're, in this case, teaching Jo the skills of noting when she's feeling distressed or uncomfortable or unnerved in some way. We're teaching her to use that as a cue to decenter, to stand back. And we're using Socratic method to help, to prompt her to then think about, why does it make sense that I think like this? But what doesn't fit in with my thinking? What's inconsistent with my automatic thoughts? And then we're helping her to move forward with these new insights, to develop new conclusions and new ways forward. You might also have noticed that to facilitate Jo in developing a new angle and a new perspective, we used a shift in person. I asked her how her friend Sue might react to a situation, what her friend Sue might say. And this is a useful strategy when a client becomes very rigid in their thinking or unable to move out of their problem mindset. Often by asking them how would someone else view the situation, they can take a step outside their own mindset and become much more creative. Another strategy that we use is shift in time. And I might ask someone, well, let's fast forward 3 years. How will you feel about this event then? Or I might say to someone, let's think back to the time before you were depressed. How would you have viewed this event before you were depressed? So we can use shifts in person, shifts in time to help widen the client's perspectives. Also, you will have seen that we used ratings. I asked Jo how strongly she held a belief before we did the exercise of standing back, reviewing her automatic thoughts, and I asked her to re-rate. Now this is important for several reasons. One is that it gives the therapist a handle on whether the intervention is being helpful, but also it gives the client a sense of hope if those ratings change. And I think that's what we saw with Jo. We can also keep a record of those ratings, and over time we can look at rating shift and change maybe over the course of therapy. So keeping ratings can give you extra information that can be very useful to your work. Now let's look at Socratic method used in problem solving. Now when we've moved to this stage of therapy, the emphasis is very much on generating new solutions and devising concrete plans to take these forward. If you remember the learning cycle, this is the quadrant of action, of planning for action. And useful questions when we're facilitating someone in problem solving are questions like, what would you advise someone else in your position to do? With hindsight, what would you do differently next time? That's interesting. How would you check it out? And each of those questions is geared towards facilitating the client to generate more options. We're going to look at it in action now. So let's just look back at this cycle that we built up. What you were saying was that the situation at work was stressful. Your boss had been critical of your work, and that gave you quite a lot of stress to deal with. And interestingly, you also noted that you were hungry at the time. And what it seemed to leave you with was the physical sensations of being stressed, emotionally feeling embarrassed, you were cross with yourself, and the I'm a failure at work thought started to kick in again. Okay? And at that point, you had the urge to eat, very strong urge to eat. Okay? And you did eat, and that seemed to hold the stress in check for a while, but not for very long, because after you'd eaten, you felt even more stressed by having eaten, and then you had the urge to vomit. And you did vomit, and initially you felt better, but again, it didn't last very long, and 10 minutes later, the stress had increased even more. And then you got the urge to eat again, and then that seems to close the cycle. Is that a fair representation of what you went through that day and perhaps what you experienced?
I'd say, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So we said we'd look at ways of breaking this cycle, sabotaging it. As you look at it, does anything come to mind? Any places that you could break in? What needs to change?
Well, instead of eating, I could do something else.
So when you're stressed, instead of turning to food, you could try something else. What comes to mind?
I enjoy reading.
Okay, let me jot these down.
I also like walking, just getting some fresh air.
Yeah. Anything else? You're feeling stressed. It's giving you the urge to eat. What could you do instead? Read something pleasurable. Go for a walk. Get some fresh air.
Perhaps do a bit of relaxation as well.
All right. Good thinking. Okay. Anything else?
No, not for now.
Well, that's a pretty good collection of things. Now, what would help you to put those in place of the eating? If we think back to that occasion that you described, you know, you're at work, you're upset, you were stressed, and you ate. What would have helped you, instead of, at that point, eating, what would have helped you to turn to reading, getting some fresh air, doing some relaxation?
I could actually have my book on my desk, let's say, or a magazine, just accessible.
So keep a book nearby. Okay, that was a good idea. Then you had another idea about magazine.
Yeah, I could, have a magazine tucked away on my desk.
Okay, so that's very good, because that means that at the time that you're at risk of eating, you've got something that's literally to hand that you could do instead. Okay, and on the day that you were stressed and you ate, did you have anything like that available? No. Okay, so it'd be interesting to see whether it makes a difference having it available. You had some other good ideas: walking, getting fresh air. Is that something that could have come into play that day?
Oh yeah, I mean, it wasn't raining, or not that matters, but I could have gone out into the garden at work and sat quietly, or just wandered round.
Okay. And the relaxation?
I've learnt some new techniques recently, so I could use those.
Is that feasible at work?
Well, some of them are.
Or some of the shorter exercises?
Yeah. But not that I wouldn't take the CD or anything to work.
So how could you incorporate doing some of those shorter relaxation exercises with a real life situation at work?
I could perhaps have some of the techniques written down on a piece of paper, and then have it in a notebook, at work or something.
And where would you be able to do that?
Well, the garden at work is generally quite quiet. So
that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
I could, combine the two.
Yeah. looking at this list then of the things that might replace the eating, so which would mean we'd break in the cycle there. Keeping a book nearby so that you could distract yourself with that, keeping magazines in your desk so you could distract yourself with those, going into the garden for some fresh air and a walk, and actually doing some of the more portable relaxation exercises in the garden. Does that seem feasible? Does that seem workable?
Absolutely.
So it is, in theory, possible to do those things. How are we going to make sure then that we increase the likelihood that when you get the urge to eat, when you're stressed, you go towards this set of coping strategies rather than the eating?
Well, instead of having, let's say, muesli bars or chocolate bars in my drawer, I could take those out and have a magazine instead. Does that make sense?
That's a good idea, yeah. So make sure you've got access to the helpful stuff and decrease your access to the less helpful stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea. Anything else that might make it more likely that you go for the more helpful coping strategy? Anything else you can think of?
Well, I could actually write down some of the relaxation techniques, from the CD, and then put it in a notebook.
That's a good idea.
With the magazine.
Yeah. Yes. So you keep a reminder of the relaxation exercises, again, close by. Yeah. Okay. How's this looking as a possibility that if you start sort of heading towards that cycle and you reach the point where you've got the urge to eat, that you go in a different direction and use helpful strategies?
I feel much better knowing that there's something I can actually do to help myself and to break that cycle.
What do we need in terms of a way of evaluating whether it's working for you? We've got this plan now that you will try these more helpful coping strategies. You do some practical things to make those more accessible. We need to know whether our plan is working. What could we use to judge that?
Well, I guess we could I monitor how many times I'm not binging or not vomiting.
Right, or monitor the times you are, and if it goes down, that will tell us that things have changed.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so if you could keep just a note each day, whether you had the urge and whether you gave in or not, whether you had the urge and went this way or that way, that would give us a handle on whether this is a helpful intervention for you. If it is, great, we'll build on it. And if it's not, then we need to go back and start fine-tuning this. Because I think in essence, you've come up with some really good ideas. It might be that we need to do some tweaking to make sure it's really tailored for you in the circumstances that you need to use it. How does that sound?
That makes sense.
And in practical terms, what are you going to do next?
I've actually just finished my book, so I need to go out and get another book to read, probably from the library, and also need to go and buy a magazine.
Right. Okay, so that you've got the stuff there, ready to go. Brilliant.
Exactly.
That's a really good idea. So what do we see in that piece of role play? Well, this is actually relevant for all aspects of cognitive therapy and the practice of Socratic method, but particularly we saw detail, summaries, and that question, is there anything else? Always check out, is there anything else? You can't assume that the work is finished unless you check it out. Replay real events and plan for real situations where possible. Sometimes we have to be hypothetical, but if you can avoid that and link the work that you're doing with your client to real events, then it's going to be much more powerful for them at the time they need to use their problem-solving skills. If you've planned for a hypothetical problem, That will be helpful, but the plans might not be so accessible and so readily put into action as plans that were made for a definable situation. You might have noticed that the role play was full of encouraging statements from the therapist, and that's important. We're trying to keep anxiety down. If the client's anxiety rises, they'll start to have problems being creative, their minds might even go blank, and then it becomes impossible for them to generate new ideas and to do the problem solving. That would leave the client with a very bad experience of, I can't do this either. And so the therapist needs to keep the anxiety in the session to a minimum. And one way of doing that is to constantly encourage and reassure. And then finally, it's important that the therapist fosters curiosity and a no-fail attitude in the client. If the client's going to be successful at generating new possibilities, generating plans, they've got to have that curious attitude, which can be modelled by the therapist. And also they have to have the attitude of no fail. Whatever happens, I'm going to learn something. If it goes wrong, I'm going to learn from that. And if the client doesn't have that attitude of no fail, it can be often too frightening for them to take their plans forward. So as a therapist, encourage that. So in summary then, what can we say? Well, first of all, Socratic method is an invaluable technique in CBT, but don't try to use it exclusively. Secondly, be curious, be cautious, be compassionate. Be confident also. You're an intuitive scientist. If you can walk into a dinner party and chat someone up, you can do Socratic method in sessions. And remember the therapeutic relationship. All the work you do is in this important context, and your questions should be paced and couched such that you protect the therapeutic alliance. Remember also that your job is to train your client to become good at Socratic method. And remember also the versatility of the Socratic method in assessment, in challenging, all aspects of therapy, but also outside therapy too. It's a very useful technique to use in supervision and teaching, for example.